wonderful to have you with us. My name is Adrian Groenewald of ThinkLead Ecosystem, and it's also brought to you by MCA, and our very special guest is Mr. Herman Mashaba, the founder and president of ActionSA, but of course he's also a businessman, disrupted business, disrupting politics, family man, man of faith, just so much we can say about him, but now certainly a household name in South Africa as he comes onto the political landscape. So Herman, absolutely welcome on this Friday afternoon. They say it's not the best time to do webcasts on a Friday afternoon, but we did it anyway. We'll share this recording with people as well. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Adrian, and thank you for really giving me the space to really share my thoughts on leadership with fellow South Africans. Because if we don't really engage as a country, as a nation, then we are bound to fail. Because if you look at history, all systems that have actually ever failed, that's where civil society sit back and everyone says politics is not for me. I'm not a politician. People don't realize that human beings by nature, we are all political animals, and we decide to participate or not. And our decision not to participate then subject us to being governed by criminals. And that has happened for the last 2,000 years until men started really waking up to just over 200 years when we started seeing democratic institutions being established. And you look at now, the ones that have ever succeeded are those where civil society is vigilant, is not really prepared to let politicians or public representatives to be the one in office.
Yeah, well said, Herman. Now, I want people to know why we've started these interviews. I mean, I've been doing leadership interviews for many years, but this specific round, during this period, I'm going to share a screen that gives people a bit of a picture of, let me just go back, of the state of leadership in our world, okay? And this is also, I think, this instinctive feeling by someone like you, Herman, that our state of leadership is not very good is what drives you to do what you're doing. That's my assumption. You may say it in other words, but certainly in our country. We asked this question on Twitter and on LinkedIn, because we know it's two different profile leaders. We said, is the world producing better or worse leaders in politics and business, collectively speaking, because we know there are pockets of excellence. So we asked this question. The vote for better was between 5 and 20%. So LinkedIn moved more towards 5, and Twitter, which is more radical and political, maybe moved more to 20, but very bad. Those who voted for worse, and it was a good sample, South Africans, sorry, this is not just South Africans, this is abroad, all over on those two platforms, 76 to 86% voted that we are producing worse leaders. And then there are the don't knows. Mm-hmm. So we went to a Gallup poll that says 82%, and note the percentage correlation, 82% of managers and executives are seen by their direct reports as lacking in leadership qualities and skills. That is just not good. And then we went to another research piece that appeared in the Huffington Post and other publications. 75% of working adults say the most stressful aspect of the job is their immediate boss. So we can draw on much more. In essence, we're realizing that there's a lack of leadership fitness. And when you talk about leadership fitness, you're saying it's leadership competency, leadership competence, leadership excellence, leadership, consistent leadership effectiveness. Okay, so that's leadership fitness. I can be good today, but can I do it consistently? And that results in all the ills, Herman, that you hope you can fight, let's say, on the political landscape and beyond. From family to politics to business, we've got a lot of ills in society, and it's time to do things radically different. And then I want to just share this with you in terms of what drives us is and I know this sounds very clinical, but we want to professionalize leadership. All that means, folks, is that leaders must be held accountable to stay leadership fit and effective and excellent consistently. And it's a lot like professional people are held accountable to stay professionally fit. They call it CPD, continuous professional development. We want to start continuous leadership development, and it must become a culture in the world. And we're aiming for 25,000 authentic or professional fit leaders by 2025 and another 30,000 by 2030 in all sectors of society. But our system is built in a way that once we get to 25,000, there will be many thousands inside the system. So we are radically trying to do things differently. And that's also why we are having these conversations and why we created Think Lead ecosystem. And towards the end, we'll tell you a little bit more. But right now, we've got one of the influences in our political landscape, and that means in our country, Herman Mashaba. We believe leadership is about movement, Herman, moving people to a better place or a place they've never been before, or improving. There's a lot of synonyms for movement. So let's just quickly, in 30 seconds almost, explain the movement that you've created, you and your team, since you started the discussions maybe 18 months ago, and you went to market, you went to South Africans and you said, right, what are the issues that bother you? How can we fix it? And you got about 2 million responses plus, and you felt you got a mandate to start a party. And then ActionSA was born a year or so ago with a lot of opposition, a lot of resistance, a lot of challenges, and still you have totally disrupted and given people hope for a lot of things in our country. But let's just tell us the movement that you created in the last year.
But no, thank you very much. What happened is upon resigning from the DA, there was an outcry by South Africans that I start my own political party. And obviously not really have a sense whether this were genuine people or not. I needed scientific data and research. That's how the People's Dialogue was born on the 6th of December, to run over 3 months, because we did not have the time. Because my view was that if I can have 500,000 people giving me empirical evidence of their seriousness to start a political party, we have to ready ourselves for 2021 local government elections. And when I approached my family to fund this project, asking me how much I want, I said, I've got no idea. As long as I can get 500,000, and if I get less than 500,000, then I know people are not really serious about realizing that we've got leadership challenges. Shocked that in the 3 months, reached 33 million people, 2.4 million South Africans gave us the mandate to start this political party now called ActionSA, which we launched on the 29th of August last year. We contested our elections this year in 6 municipalities. Today, we are the 6th largest political party out of political parties that contested in 278 municipalities. I think this, for me, I'm used to surprises. I was born like that. I was born and trained by my grandfather. In everything that I do, I must do it to win, and that's me. And yes, we obviously would have wanted to take over ultimately, but I can tell you, because I'm a man who believes in God, God has put us in an excellent position right now. If you look at the power we're holding, we've given South Africans hope that ANC can unseat it, because the biggest challenge South Africa was facing the last 27 years, more especially the last 15 plus years, people were already losing confidence. But people never thought that the ANC can be unseated. And I wanted to prove to South Africans that, no, we can do it. And here is it. We've done it. In contested 6 municipalities, we unseated the ANC below 50% in all 6 of them. Actually, if you look at the 3 in Gauteng, we put them below 40% in the early 30s. Our campaign was to put them under 50%, and look at them, they are in the early 30s. So that actually has given South Africans hope for 2024 that we are going to work ensuring that we take ANC way under 30% this time around.
Herman, so incredible movement. So let's sort of, we'll always touch around politics. Of course, we'll be on the edges of it, because that's where you're creating the movement at the moment. But I just want to talk a little bit of leadership before we, a little later on, look at questions perhaps. What's been your biggest learnings as a leader over the last year of incredible ups? I mean, amazing achievements, and definitely some incredible downs as well, and challenges that you faced. What's been some of your biggest learnings as a leader? Have you learned things about yourself and about leadership that you maybe didn't see the same way before?
No, the last year has been tough, but what I've always accepted life to really be a tough space. But actually, it has strengthened my resolve that things are possible. Life can be changed. You just have to really believe what you do, and I very strongly believe on a daily basis that always ask for God's wisdom, because I don't really trust my own judgment. But at the end of the day, on a daily basis, every decision I take, I ask God to really give me the wisdom, because working through God to really get the wisdom, I always win. God will never really let you down. He might not obviously give you the results that you expect now, but at the end of the day, God will never let you down. So that has really strengthened my resolve and determination to really believe that there's a bigger power out there, that if you're an ethical leader, you're someone who can differentiate between right and wrong. There's just no way that you can actually fail in life and actually do things being selfless. As you're aware, Adrian, I'm a self-confessed capitalist. I love the capitalist system, and I not just like it, I love the system. But at the same time, it is through that system that you can empower yourself, and through that process, you empower other people. When you really look at my life as a capitalist, and I've been fortunate for close to 40 years that my family and I have always made more money than we needed, and we use the excess money to help empower others. Well, we're not a family that believes in giving people fish. We're a family that always believes in actually giving people an opportunity to climb up the ladder. And that's really why my family allowed me to really enter the political space, use our privileged position as a family to really make a difference in millions of lives of South Africans. And that's how I look at life, because I had options before entering politics to leave this country. Financially, our family can afford to go and live anywhere in the world. But one thing for sure is, because of our fear for God, we says no. For you to really be as privileged as you are, it must be for a reason. So use your resources, use your opportunities given to you by God to serve mankind and serve society.
For me, the power of that, Herman, is the realization that you're always accountable. It doesn't matter how senior or influential or where you sit. If you're president of a country and you don't have that kind of faith that you mentioned now, who are you accountable to? You know, and just that realization that there's always someone that you're accountable to, even if it's God, even if it's your creator, you know, and of course, we're always accountable to our electorate, we're accountable to our family. I just want to know, are you enjoying yourself? I mean, what's the best part of this venture? Or are you just so focused, you just keep going? Do you ever sit back and say, am I enjoying myself? Am I enjoying this? Or is it not about that?
I think if I have to really be honest with you and honest to God, and even I mean, this job, it's a brutal job. It's not a job for enjoyment. It's a job, Adrian, ever since I've started doing it just over 5 years ago, I need sleeping tablets to really be able to get my mind to switch off. It's a punishing job. It's a job where you are insulted on a daily basis. It's a job where you are always under attack. But it's a rewarding job. I think and believe very strongly that I'm one of the most fortunate human beings in my life. I'm a 62-year-old South African born in abject poverty, took a decision at the age of 22 in the dark days of apartheid to liberate myself. And I was in the process fortunate enough that God and the country and the world rewarded me. And this for me, it's a punishing job, but at the same time, I'm embracing it because I believe it's payback time for me, because I've enjoyed almost 40 years of real financial success. And what is real financial success? Yes, it's to really have a good bank balance that my family and I have got. But is it the ultimate objective? Absolutely not really for me. For me, success is actually seeing my neighbors my fellow South Africans and people of the world obviously living outside poverty, because poverty is evil. Poverty, it's a man-made phenomenon. It's something that is created by failing leaders who are destructive, who are corrupt, who are criminals. And I believe fortunate South Africans like myself has got that responsibility to ensure that we can allow my country in particular to be one day be led by ethical leadership, by the moral leaders, by leaders that are forward-looking, not leaders that are here only really looking at what to eat today. You need a country. I want to live in a country where we have the leadership that is saying, what are our people going to be eating in 20-25 years? Well, are we going to have doctors? Are we going to have lawyers? Are we going to have scientists? We look at the current pandemic that we are facing. We don't really have the leadership today in our country that can really give us hope to really look forward to tomorrow.
Herman, do you believe now more than ever, or more than a year ago maybe, is your resolve and your belief that it's possible for this country to be run by ethical, good, moral, great leaders? Is your belief stronger now than it was a year ago, 2-3 years ago? Is that belief getting stronger in your view, while the challenges are getting bigger and bigger? So in other words, it almost fights against each other, if you know what I mean. It's getting more and more difficult to pull the country out of the dip, out of the hole potentially. But do you think it's possible?
Well, it's a very difficult question, but at the same time, actually quite easy if one looks at it. I think we have demonstrated over the last 18 months, more especially with the recent elections, because you remember, just look at, do your research to really look at political commentators and analysts. Our project was totally disregarded. I mean, we were called a joke, we were called all manner of names. But look at it today. I think we've given South Africans hope. And this hope didn't just really happen by chance. It happens because of our total resolve and commitment to this project of saving South Africa, to demonstrate to South Africans that corrupt government that can be defeated, and you don't have to really defeat them by using the barrel of a gun or burning your infrastructure and your hospitals. You can actually doing it in this particular case in South Africa, where we can use the constitutional framework that is available to us to actually change the current wrong direction that the country it's pursuing. It is possible, but it needs the leadership that is strategic, like in what we've just recently done. You know why we decided to only contest in 6 municipalities? Because we did not want to overstretch ourselves. We wanted to actually make sure that when we deliver that punch, it has to really be very strong. Otherwise, if we had really overstretched ourselves, I don't really believe we would have achieved even 10% of what we did. I think it is really being strategic. It is about really being forward-looking and have the patience, because the damage caused to our country's political and moral landscape is not something that any human being would really be able to resolve in 20 years' time. I think if you look at our infrastructure backlog, I mean, I grew up in a country where we have an excellent, one of the best rail network in the world. Today, where is it? Almost non-existent. People of Soweto used to use trains, use buses to travel, to go to work. Today, the rail network is gone, almost completely gone. We live in a country where stealing, it's like it's already an accepted norm in our society. We look at what's happening with violence against women and children. I mean, I just cannot understand. It gives me such a fear and concern. I dread to live in a country where another human being can kill one and cut them into pieces. For what? And someone you call your wife or your girlfriend or your husband or boyfriend, I just cannot really mentally actually reconcile the evil that is actually happening in our country. I live in a country where 60 plus people are being murdered on a daily basis. And South Africans, we are just walking around, we think it is normal. It cannot really be normal. We sit with a country where, Adrian, when I grew up, people who did not work were those who did not want to work. Today, 46.6% of South Africans are unemployed, over 13 million people unemployed. In a country just 20, 30 years ago, people who did not work were those who did not already work. So, and you can imagine, working is not just really about earning an income. It's about your dignity. Because what happens when people don't really work? You take away that dignity. That's why we end up with a level of these heinous crimes that we see committed in our communities.
So, Herman, what I understand, you believe it's hopeful. We can get to that point, but it's going to be brutal. And it takes unity, and it takes people to get on board and make their hands dirty. Now, I'm going to get to the point soon where I want to unpack that state of leadership that I shared in the beginning. And I might show that slide very quickly again for our people that joined us over the last few minutes. I see lots of comments down there too, and questions, no doubt. But before we get to that, those poll results and the state of leadership as it currently stands, just help us understand the kind of leadership and almost leadership attributes we now need on the political landscape to deal with coalition governments, for example, and all the challenges we face with that. It's now part of our politics. We've dabbled with it over the last few years, I guess. Now it's a reality that we have to have coalition politics. So describe to me the kind of leadership attributes. You did a lot of that in Johannesburg, and you still had a lot of opposition because of it and a lot of challenges trying to run a coalition. Define the ideal mayor, the ideal leaders we need to achieve success over the next few years in this kind of environment.
Well, I think really one huge challenge we are facing in South Africa at the moment is the dominance of political parties over individuals. So you have the president of the country, or you have the mayor, or you have the premier. They are more aligned to their party politics than society. That's really something that is really very scary, where you have the leadership of country, as I say, from the president downwards. Look at our president. His interest, and he's declared this upfront, his priority is the unity of the ANC than the unity of South Africans. So already you've got you can see this kind of dichotomy and challenge that when you have a president who's more concerned about the unity of his party than the unity of South Africans. I can give you my own practical example, running as a mayor of the city of Johannesburg over 3 years. And what made me to leave prior to the completion of my term is because the party I was representing expected me to serve the party than actually serve society. Because my belief is that when you serve in public office, yes, when you campaign as political parties, but once you're in office, your responsibility and service is not only to your political party. You have the entire society, those who voted for you, those who did not really vote, and those who voted for other political parties. And what actually made me to eventually throw in the towel was when my party wanted to turn me into a political animal. Lucky enough was that I did not really enter politics because of the politics of the stomach. But if you look at majority or a big number of politicians in this country, unfortunately, they are in politics. The only thing that they know in life is politics, nothing else. So that's why they can easily be swayed in actually respecting party political issues at the expense of society. That's really one challenge that as society, as South Africans, we need to really overcome, where I believe one day we will have to really have constitutional amendments where we must run primaries, where for you to really be the president of the country, you've got to really be elected by the people. For you to be the mayor, you must be directly elected by the people. You are not really chosen by political parties in smoke-filled rooms in the dark. You must go out there and really campaign. And when people actually vote for you as a president or for you as a mayor, they know that they can hold you accountable. They can recall you. They don't have to really go through your political party. So that's actually, for me, the weakness I see. We've got a fantastic constitution, but it's definitely, without any doubt, like anything in life, it needs some modification. And this is one of the weaknesses with our political system, with our constitution, which allows political parties to compromise social interest at the end, so at the expense of political parties.
Okay, so that's a key thing for our leaders, is we are looking for leaders who, sure, you've got to mostly be affiliated to a party, but we are looking for leaders who see the big picture, who serve society, who serve what's right, who serves what we need as citizens. We need our president to say, I'm now the president of all South Africans, not a party first. That is what we need, and that will help coalition politics a lot. Herman, just your views before we go to questions and things. I'm going to show this to everyone who just joined. Your views on, let me just go back here. I'm just going to go back to my picture that I shared with everyone right at the beginning. The state of leadership, the question we asked, whether the world is producing better or worse leaders, and 76 to 86% people voted for that, which is absolutely horrible. We checked that with a Gallup poll that says 82% managers are seen by their direct reports as lacking in leadership qualities and skills. And in this research, 75% of working adults say the most stressful aspect of their job is their immediate boss. So Herman, I'm going to stop here and ask you, what does that tell us about leadership at the top in our society? Because generally we see it that way, don't we? Leadership are the people at the top of corporate, top of politics. What indictment is this on us as a society when the research is coming out like that? We're not changing it.
Well, you know, when I looked at your research results, are a mirror of what really transpired in this country over the last 15, 20 years. Let me give you, I'd always like, when I discuss issues with people, use practical examples, the things that people can relate to, because this is not an academic exercise that we're talking about. As much as it came from the research that you did, came from educational analysis. Look at what happened in 2007 at Polokwane, where ANC took a decision to elect Jacob Zuma as the president of the country. Let's reflect back. At the time, Jacob Zuma was facing just under 800 cases. There wasn't any law in the world, in the country, that is not broken. Yeah, but here's the political party elect him as the leader of their organization. Let's fast forward it to 2009. 69% of those who voted for this man to be the president of the country. Fast forward to 2014, and the man wasn't getting any better. Was getting worse than he was in 2007. 2014, let's fast forward it. 62% of the people still voted for this man to really be in power. Yes, as much as the political party was dropping in terms of their voter support, but they had people who were there waking up in the morning on the day of voting and says, this is the man I want as my president of the country. And now, how does one actually extrapolate to what actually really happened to the moral fiber of society? For me, I look back, because I lived more than half of my life under an apartheid system, evil system, and I look at the new South Africa. Something went terribly wrong. Firstly, by ensuring that you destroy the moral fiber of society, by ensuring that you don't provide them with education, with quality education. Let them just go to school and pass. But in terms of real education, no real education. Make sure that you get people to be dependent on the state, because once you have a human being, and I can vividly tell you when I was in school, I started my school in 1966 at Lebelo Primary School in Haramutz in Amanskral. We used to have feeding schemes, and for some reason I had the pride of saying, no, I'm not prepared to really go and queue government to give us porridge in the morning. Rather make make a plan, because as a young person, my grandfather taught me to make sure that I must keep my dignity intact. Because if once another human being can take your dignity away from you, then you are just living. You're no longer a human being. So if you look at today, our people, how many of our people have to rely on 350 rands a month to survive? We've got over 18 million people on social grant. So don't think, do you think these people are proud of themselves? Look at this RDP houses with high unemployment, bad educational system. Fathers and mothers are no longer parents because children have never seen their parents wake up in the morning, go to work, and the end of the month or end of the week, they provide for them. They live in a government house, unemployed. Do you expect children 24, 27 years later, who've never seen a single parent waking up to go to work, do you think they will respect their parents? And is this a mistake? For me, it's a well-engineered system to really create the current system that you are sitting with. Can it be corrected? I believe strongly that it can be corrected. South Africans have really demonstrated, more especially a month ago with the elections, that people are hurtful. They've really had enough. You can abuse people, but human beings, fortunate enough, they reach a level where they cannot take abuse any longer. And I feel South Africa is at that point where South Africans are saying enough is enough. But obviously to change this, it's not something that can happen overnight. Obviously, we need to, firstly, to have the change of government, a government that is going to be held accountable. You need to start investing in good quality education so that in 25 years down the line, you can have enough engineers, enough scientists, enough accountants, and so forth. It's not something that you can rebuild overnight. You need to rebuild on the infrastructure. Our people live in squalor. We're growing up in a village. I look at how we used to breed pigs. A lot of our people here in the city of Johannesburg, in this squatter camps, their living conditions, I can tell you, they're worse than how we used to look after pigs in the townships in the 60s or so when I was growing up. So I believe it is possible, but it's not something that I think we have to really be naive to give a wrong impression that we can fix this overnight. This will take time, but it's a question of all the time really communicating to the people the type of challenges that we are facing as a nation.
But all of that, good education system, good this, good that, all of that we need, Herman, all of that swing on the hinges, that the door of society swing on the hinges of leadership. And the reason it's not so good is because of bad leadership. The way we're going to get it to a point where it's better is good leadership again. And it's almost as though we don't always realize. And the question is, how are we going to improve leadership? How are we going to improve more accountability? How are we going to improve the ability of leaders to create better movement, to do the kind of things?
Well, not only that, Adrian, if you don't mind me asking, Herman, you know, I've just, as I mentioned to you earlier on, I've just gone back from Zambia, and, you know, I just love your narrative. I really and truly do. I think your narrative is absolutely brilliant. I love what you stand for. I think we need more leaders in South Africa to be standing up for the kind of morals that you're speaking about here today. And I look at President Hichilema in Zambia, who, as you know, has just been elected or recently as president of Zambia, a very successful businessman like yourself, somebody who's been locked up by the opposition on many times, on many occasions, and is now president. And is trying to the best of his ability to root out this this mindset of corruption and so on and so forth. My question to you is, as president of this country, how would you do that? How would you root out the corruption, the mindset of corruption that is so endemic within society and within our political society especially?
Well, the only way you can rid society of corruption, it is not really by words, and it has to be by deeds. I think as a country, as a section SA, I can give an example. Given the opportunity to really be in government in 2024, we will immediately re-establish the Scorpions with less political interference. That the head of the Scorpions cannot be elected by the president. That I want to live in a society like that, where our criminal justice system is actually free of political interference. The head of the NPA, look at what happened last night with the resignation of a senior person in the NPA, and the head of the NPA is not really taking this matter seriously. So we need a system where there's just too much power in this country that has been given to our president constitutionally. I think we need to really live in a society where the head of the Scorpions, the scrum-busting, corruption-busting unit, is not elected by the president, so that this person is not accountable to the president. The head of the NPA also cannot really be a political appointee. It is got to be an independent person accountable to an independent body or directly independent to civil society, more especially in our country right now. We've got a crisis of the collapse of our criminal justice system. I cannot understand why the head of the constitutional, the Chief Justice must be appointed by the president. What we need a system that can isolate some of the societal issues. We isolate them from political interference, because I cannot see the reason why, as the head of the National Prosecuting Authority, I've got to ask the president whether I must prosecute or not. No, our law enforcement agencies must arrest. If Herman Mashaba has stolen a cent of public monies, is a mayor, is a businessman, or is a president of the country, must be arrested. Obviously, they must take responsibility in the event that they're driving a political agenda. We make sure that there are consequences for them to abuse their powers. Because the reason why ANC decided to abolish the Scorpions, they said because it's got political agenda. So we cannot really live in a society where we're relying on the president for prosecution. The prosecutors must be totally independent, do their job without any fear or favor, must be able to really pursue and ensure that you do it as a matter of agency. Because if you look at successful nations, the rule of law is one of the key components of a successful nation. If you want to destroy a society or a nation, destroy the rule of law. And that's really what happened in our country right now. We are totally almost defenseless as a society. Our intelligence network, I don't know if we still do have in real terms. I know constitutionally and cost-wise that we do have such structures. Do they do their job? I'm afraid not.
Okay, so I'm going to go to questions, but before I do that, I'm going to use this opportunity, Herman, to just say one or two things. When it comes to leadership, the standard of leadership in our society, we have to find a way across the board to lift that standard. And one of the ways we're professing is to professionalize it. In other words, just like we professionalize engineers and doctors and accountants, and we hold them accountable to keep themselves technically fit through their points they have to earn in all sorts of ways, because we don't want bridges to collapse on us. But we're not holding leaders accountable to keep themselves leadership fit, to do continuous leadership development. And they are making our companies collapse. They're making our country collapse. They're making teams collapse, people's families collapse. So leaders are creating a lot of havoc because we are not finding a way. Now, we've built a system called Think Lead Ecosystem, okay? I want one of my team members to put in the chat box thinklead.app, www.thinklead.app, and we invite all leaders to join that ecosystem. And I'll say Why? Because in that system, you can start becoming a professional, permanently fit leader if you utilize it correctly. So please join there, and we'll guide you further. Put your correct email address. We'll guide you further in terms of how exactly can you become a professionally fit, competent, consistently effective, excellent leader. thinklead.app. Please join there. Herman, I'm going to just check the chat box. There's a heck of a lot of questions here. Let me go to the top for a moment. What is the progress of, I think, coalitions, Mr. Mashaba? I live in Ekurhuleni. We were not collected on time this week. The bins were not collected on time this week. Bad start by the DA. Okay, let's go to that a little later. Herman, all the political sort of delivery questions, they're important, but this is a leadership conversation. I first want to pick. Personally, I'm interested in the progress. Okay, also interested in coalition. We do see that, Herman. We see leaders are elected, and then we see these perceived egotistical fights for positions and lobbying, and we just lose it. You know, as ordinary citizens, you feel like ego is more important sometimes than the delivery. So proud of you, Tata Mashaba. We are behind you all the way, and 2004 ANC will be below 30. All we need now is to continue growing the ActionSA and be more visible, serve with dignity when given an opportunity to do so. And then earlier, very powerful words by Maxwell right there. I believe this country is in good hands under your leadership. South Africans need to entrust you with their votes. Coalition negotiations progress. Yes, we'll get there. Exactly, a country out of control, you said. Where does leadership and the right to choose lie in relation to each other? Keith is asking, when dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and the increasing pressure of forced vaccination. Oh, sensitive one, Herman. So I'm just trying to see here if you want to jump in and answer one of those. So firstly, how coalition is doing. There's the vaccination thing. We hear your leadership, and we are prepared to go into the trenches with you to save South Africa. Okay, that's a positive comment there. Mr. Mashaba, what's your take on vaccination mandatory? So vaccination comes up again. A capitalist system will only succeed if it creates more capitalists to ensure continuous innovation. What is our position with regards to transformation in the workplace and in business circles? All right, so Herman, maybe there, and then one more. Let me see if I can squeeze this. I think that democracy needs at least two things to be effective: good education and good awareness of what is happening. How can leaders move these two needs forward? Stephen Smith. So before we go there, any comments on some questions and statements made, Herman?
Okay, I think, you know, one big mistake we made as South Africa, and I think we need to really arrest this. 27th of April 1994, when I went to vote, I thought we were going to see an explosion of talent of South Africans, which was oppressed for many years. I thought we were going to really live in a country, Desmond Tutu so eloquently communicated that we're going to be a rainbow nation. We're going to be an example to the world that God has created us in his image, and we are going to really be a rainbow nation. Unfortunately, 27 years later, we are more divided than we were prior to 1994. And why? Because we decided in pursuing racial policies. Some of the policies that you are pursuing are actually much more violent than even would ever envisaged. Because you can imagine if for us in South Africa, if 1994 have recognized that we come from an evil past, but we needed to really build a new society that is not really built on discriminating people on the basis of color. What you do is grow the economy, allow to run a professional public service of those South Africans who are committed to really be in government and prepared to offer their services to this country. You can imagine if we had allowed businesses to operate on the basis of using the best skills to grow their businesses. But now what happened? We came out with government that interfered in every aspect of our lives. And then in the process, what happened? skills left this country in droves, in thousands. Businesses had no incentive whatsoever to invest in our businesses. We destroyed our schools. We created racial disharmony in our society, because racial integration is not something that you can force on society. It's something that you do as government by using incentives, by using encouragement, because you can't really run business when you have government having a gun pointing at you. No successful economy can ever succeed. The world has become so small. That's why people decided to really leave this country. South Africa today is not an investor-friendly country. I take myself as a black businessman, where I can tell you the last 10 or odd years in this country, I only invest where I must keep my businesses running. But I'm not really prepared to really put my money in long-term investment, because the country has been really very delicate, has been really vulnerable, and which is really very unfortunate. So we really failed to really live up to that project of creating the Rainbow Nation, because the results of the Rainbow Nation would have been very growing economy, growing at between 8 and 10% right now. We were the envy of the world. Every human being anywhere in the world wanted to really be in South Africa. South Africa was an excellent place because we created a miracle. We must never underestimate what happened on the 27th of April, 1994. It was a miracle, because I grew up never thinking that I will one day live in a democratic dispensation. And we created that. And I think it's not something that we must take for granted, but we've destroyed it. So we need to rebuild that culture of giving South Africans an opportunity to really flourish. And then when the country flourishes, government collects more money. As government collects more money, they invest it in education, they invest it in building more hospitals, more universities, and so forth. Instead of sending our kids to go and study medicine in Cuba, where people are using wheelbarrows as hospital facilities. Instead of building our own infrastructure, we build it, we're sending our kids to go and study somewhere else where people don't really have the necessary expertise and infrastructure that this country has got. As for the coalition arrangement in the 3 metros, unfortunately for us as ActionSA, we're not in government. In Johannesburg, we have proudly have 44 councillors. We're the 3rd biggest party in the city of Johannesburg. Proud of such a massive achievement. In Tshwane, we've got 19. In Ekurhuleni, we've got 15. And last Monday, we decided, because after the election, we made it very clear as ActionSA that we'll never go into a coalition with the ANC, but other parties can approach us. And DA made advances to us, and we thought they were negotiating with us in good faith, and dropped us at the last minute, the day before council sitting. And I took a decision to say we are not going to allow them to give these municipalities to the DA. To the ANC. That's why we voted for them to be in power, and we thought they will. And we openly said and declared that we are happy to talk to them if they can humble themselves. But as far as I'm concerned, are we making progress? Absolutely not. And who's going to suffer in the process? It's civil society. I think it's a long story to elaborate. Now, I had an interview with one of the Sunday papers earlier on regarding the frustration, something that I have no control, because we are not the ones in government. We are not the ones in majority. So we gave those powers to the DA. Bring all the parties that share the same values and everything. Let's keep ANC out and form government of national unity to build up to 2024. But unfortunately, I think DA has got their own agenda. I don't know what they've got up their sleeve. That is obviously DA's issue. It's not ours. As for the vaccination, you know, I cannot really see how one will enforce vaccination or have mandatory vaccination when we don't have the leadership with no integrity. Unfortunately, Cyril Ramaphosa, to be honest with you, has lost his reputation and integrity. I don't know how many South Africans would really trust Cyril Ramaphosa. I'm one of those South Africans who don't really trust him. In a scale of the 1 to 10, if I give him 2, honestly, I'll be generous in terms of his integrity. So how is he going to force people to vaccinate? Vaccination programs anywhere in the world can only happen when society has got confidence in their political leadership. Instead of spending money on education of the dangers of this COVID-19, he had his Minister of Health who went on to actually loot those resources supposed to actually educate our people. So it is a challenge that the president has got to overcome, but I cannot really see him succeeding. My view, personal view, is that it is up to individuals to really decide. But at the end of the day, to those who don't want to vaccinate, I'm fully vaccinated to myself and my family, but I don't really believe we have the right to impose it on other people. But those who are not vaccinated also must then take the responsibility for the lives of their fellow South Africans, be at the workplaces or in shopping centers and so forth. So it's something that for it to succeed, it will really need societal consensus so that we share the same values. And right now, there is a serious trust deficit between civil society and our government.
Herman, let's take the last few minutes and talk about how we're going to improve leadership. It's clear you don't believe that there's much integrity necessarily, not a lot of trust. You obviously agree with the statistics that we showed everyone here that leadership is in a really bad state. I'd like you to share the last few minutes on how you think we can improve leadership on the political corporate front in our society. I will abuse the opportunity to tell our attendees to please join thinklead.app. thinklead.app. The address is there in the chat box. The simple reason is that's where we're going to create leadership fitness. That's where we're creating a global leadership ecosystem. That's where we are going to professionalize leadership. That's where we are going to create a new standard of leadership in the world, which across the board in corporate politics everywhere. In fact, Herman, I may not have told you before, but we are going to seek for authentic leaders in every sector of society. So we'll have a leaderboard, a global leaderboard, and a global leadership fitness report in which we register our best leaders in every sector: political, sport, retail, civic. We're going to find and develop the best leaders in all those sectors and actually expose them on this leaderboard on our website. We are absolutely on a journey to find the best leaders in society and to create consistent leadership fitness in our world. So that's what we're doing on a professional level almost, is to change the way people view leadership. I'm asking you now as a final comment, how do you think we can improve leadership, the state of leadership in general in our beautiful country?
Well, I think it's simple, but obviously needs a long-term planning. Short-term, you need the application of the rule of law. You need ruthless leadership, decisive leadership. If you break the law as a citizen of the country, there has to really be consequences. Whether you throw a paper out in the street or a cigarette butt, or you kill someone, there's got to really be considered consequences. So unfortunately, if you live in a society where there are no consequences for your action, you're bound to fail as a nation. So short term, you need to be brutal when it comes to the application of law, of the rule of law. It's got to really be fair. Secondly, obviously, you need education, and low education, it's a long term for you to really reap the rewards. My starting point is it's brutality when it comes to the rule of law. You break the rule of law, we catch you drinking and driving, you know you're going to face the consequences. Or you throw away papers out in the street, you go in illegal dumping, or you steal a cent of public monies, there's got to already be consequences. That's on a long-term basis, not to instill fear in people. No, it is to ensure that people understand that for a country to work, there has to really be the application of the rule of law. And long-term, as I would like to repeat, it's education. Make sure that 25 years down the line, you give yourself as a nation a target to say we need to have X number of accountants, X number of magistrates, judges, lawyers, and so forth and so forth. So that's on a long-term basis. If you don't take it in that spirit, I cannot really see the nation succeeding. If you don't start with a rule of law, forget it. Everything else that you are going to do, it is bound to fail. Let me give an example of something that South Africans are too scared to venture on. It's this broken immigration system in our country. I mean, I cannot understand how South Africans can allow themselves to be silenced, to dare to challenge the breakdown of our immigration system. South Africa, it's a sovereign state. South Africa was built at the back of migrants. South Africa needs to continue inviting people of the world to come here, because that's how we can really build this nation and our economy. But people must come here legally, and when they're here, they must respect our laws. So these are things that some people, some commentators are happy. I don't know how they're benefiting out of this, to attack anyone who raises this matter and call us names and insults and so forth. And we allow it as society to be silenced when we are calling for the rule of law. Because when you have a constitution and laws, you can't be selective where certain laws are there in our statute books. But when we must apply them, then there are lobby groups who are benefiting out of this criminal system. They silence us, and we allow ourselves to be silenced. And that's exactly some of the things that will destroy us as a nation. If you look at our youth who are unemployed today, they are given drugs. We get billions of counterfeit goods coming into this country, where people, the criminal syndicates are benefiting out of this. They are using lawyers to defend them. They are using PR companies and so-called analysts to attack people like myself. Fortunately enough, I'm not really the one that's going to really be silenced by allowing evil and criminality to be the order of the day in my own country.
Herman Mashaba, on that passionate point, that's what people love about you. Simple, to the point, passionate, direct. And I know personally that you're a good man in your heart as well. And I can only hope that politics will not change you. I've seen presidents, they lose their sense of humor. When they become presidents of a country, you get flung into this awful world of politics, which should be a great place to be. And I think on behalf of all of us, or most of us at least listening today, and those who will be listening to this in the future, please just stay who you are. Obviously, just because you're there for the right reasons, I have no reason to believe you won't. And thank you for joining us today. I really thank you with all my heart, and everyone else, thank you. As you leave, folks, I'm going to just put a slide on so you can see where you need to join, thinklead.app. That's where we're going to change leadership and the standard of leadership in this world, not just South Africa, but all over the world. Please join. It's free. And in there, we'll explain more what you need to do to be part of this journey of revolutionizing leadership fitness. Herman Mashaba, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Adrian, and thank you to everyone who gave me the opportunity to listen to me.
Fantastic. All the best, everyone. There's your slide. If you are interested, then please join thinklead.app. And inside ThinkLead, you'll see a place called Executive Club. That's where the point system unleashes. That's where you can do courses as much as you want. It's all about leadership fitness. And eventually you can end up in a global leaderboard in your industry and in a leadership fitness report where we're going to showcase the best leaders in every industry. In politics, Herman, we're wanting a #1 there, and the top 10 leaders, leadership fit leaders in politics there, across the boundary, hopefully. We want it in sport. We want it in different sectors of our business environment. We are going to revolutionize leadership fitness in the world. There's only one way. We can't keep doing the same things over and over and over, expecting different results. We know that that means insanity. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone. And thank you for joining us today. All the best.
Okay, folks, for those of you who are still on here, I'm going to shut down the recording. I just left it open for you to record how to get onto the ThinkLead app. So I'm going to shut down. I'm going to leave it for a few seconds and then end the whole gathering. Thanks so much for your participation.